Hello, YouTube. We're back for another session today on a Saturday, 23rd of October, 2021. And I'm joined here with Michael in Germany. And I'm just waking up over here in Minnesota. And we're looking at session 59. Michael has put together for us another session in the Age of Enlightenment, or the Scientific Revolution, Part 3. Welcome, Michael.
Yeah, hello, Brett. Hello, the listeners, either on YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, where else you can find it. Us in the future, I don't know, because YouTube did put out several strikes. It's also my channels received one, so we have to be very careful and we have to hope for the best. But that will not be forever. So that maybe you shall find us somewhere else. I don't know. So that's all. Not only hello YouTube, but hello all out there who are listening to and looking for the truth. And I hope we can provide something of interest.
Yes, Michael. You know, that's true. Our so-called free speech isn't free. It costs, and if you can't market in a manner, because it's basically they're just using all of these social medias for making money, and you can't make money with saving souls from the Antichrist. That's the fact, Michael. You just can't make any money. It doesn't work. I mean, that should be obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, the church doesn't want you to think that way. They got a different way. You have to do the rituals, see?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the ritualistic churches, well, I don't know. The Catholic Church might be on the rise, but not in Europe, as far as I know. Everywhere else it's on the rise, but not in Europe. And there's good reason for that, isn't there, Michael?
Mm-hmm. It's still working, and it's working overtime actually, but people don't recognize it. And
oh yeah, well, yeah, that's true. The merchants of the earth are involved very, very closely with the Catholic Church. So, but that's something you don't really learn till you do your research.
Yeah. Did you never ask yourself why I did use that picture for the series Science is the New Religion?
Oh, and we are talking about the Foucault pendulum now. That was very interesting. You brought up the occult connection to the pendulum.
Yeah, that was the initiation of the series. Actually, I just thought about going into this because actually people are falling for this kind of device, and I thought, okay, it would be well 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 sessions, and then I thought, well, you have to wrap it up for the entire chronologically of the world actually, and so that we are today in session 59, not due to my content, but also to the durability and patience of Brett, of course.
So yes. Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, here's the thing. I really do appreciate Michael's approach in doing the research and coming to some kind of conclusion in his script. So I'm just here for the journey along with many others, I'm sure, Michael, and we're just pleased that you've done this for us, and let's go. Let's dig right into the Foucault pendulum. I'm ready.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I choose the Foucault pendulum because they claim that it proves and uses gravity and the heliocentric system at the same time. So that the pendulum works due to gravity, and the pendulum works because, or shows and displays actually the rotation of the Earth around the Sun. So the heliocentrical or the solar sun system where the Earth supposedly moves around, and we don't know from the Bible that the Earth is fixed. And there are so many constellations and so many links of the pendulum, what to use and when it was used, when it was first used and for what use it was used, etc., etc. Also for carpentry, etc. So that it's very hard to have it in a right kind of order. So please allow me to hand over the bunch of facts I have collected you for several weeks. But I cannot do it on a quite logical, chronological way, so that you know that, oh, we start at the ancient time, because I simply lack the time of doing so. This is not the only series I'm doing. I'm doing 2 other series in German at the moment, and I really lack the time to do it in a kind of way which would be able to print a book from, for example. So that is just a loose order of events, a loose order of facts, and you have to make the summation in your mind, and you have all to compare it to the Bible, please. So I can only hand over the bunch of facts starting now. So this is once again the Foucault pendulum. I wrote it in kind of horror letters here, so you really see that there's something horrible coming up. For example, that I have discovered that all the claims how things are working in the physics from the 18th century, 19th century, and especially of the Foucault pendulum with all the physical explanation, it's very interesting when you dive into that you see that these so-called scientists were mostly Catholic. For example, Mr. Coriolis, where the Coriolis power has been named from. Yeah, so he says that a French mathematician and mechanical engineer who discovered and derived the equations for the pseudo forces, like pseudoscience, for the pseudo forces needed to describe motion in a rotating frame of reference. One of these forces is called the Coriolis force in his honor, as the Coriolis effect that it produces. Pseudo force, pseudoscience. So many things. That's very interesting, huh? One of the most familiar consequences of the Coriolis effect is the rotation of storms clockwise in the southern hemisphere and counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere. Coriolis was also the first person to use the term.
What it says in parentheses.
What?
I'm sorry, we must have a huge delay all of a sudden. What's going on?
I'm not hearing a delay from your side.
Oh, I was just saying, what's with this in the parentheses here? It says another such pseudo force is called centrifugal force.
Where do you find it?
Right a couple sentences in, about a third of the way through in parentheses there. Another such pseudo force.
Okay, yeah. Okay, okay, I wasn't ready to delve into it. Yeah, these are also called forces, and you see that actually they are effects, but you see that who am I to judge? It's just that what to point out that these guys are Catholic, and so that only in that kind of a school hierarchy system, the scientists are well honored and been mentioned after when they apply to the agenda of the Antichrist, of course, because you see all these things depicted here, described here, are so-called pseudo forces explaining kind of effects in a so-called heliocentrical system, and that's the case. That everybody who would come up with the truth and say, no, the Earth is fixed, would not get any recommendation, and it would not be recognized as such.
I think, Michael, what I'm looking at is a scientific explanation of equivocation.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's admitting, this article is admitting that there are pseudo forces needed to describe, this frame of reference.
Yeah, but this is not
go ahead.
Yeah, but this is, you see that catholicscience.org, this is more or less a very interesting site. No, but I don't know if they describe it as a pseudo force. We have to look it up, but your point is absolutely valid. But consider that all the people who are being prominently named today have a church background, more or less. Yeah, that's very interesting here.
It is.
Coriolis was a devout Catholic, and this comes out in much of his correspondence. In his youth, he considered a religious vocation, and towards the end of his life, he wrote in a letter, quote, if we did not need studies to become a Jesuit or a Benedictine, and if my health allowed me, I would be happy to enter the priesthood.
Yeah, so here we go, fictitious force, Wikipedia. I'm just quick looking it up. Isn't that interesting? Because fictitious reasoner, who was that? Was that a casuistry or sophistry? But yeah, very interesting. Oh, Paris, France. Okay.
Yeah, sure. And we have learned that especially in France, the Jesuits were using the occult in the last session, last or second to last session. So yeah. Supplementary forces, no, not pseudoscience, but supplementary forces have been called here on Wikipedia, that are detected in a rotating frame of reference, leading to the Coriolis effect. Yeah, I'm not going into this because I'm not a studied physician, so I'm out of the system. Yeah, I don't believe much of it which has been taught today, because if the root is rotten, you see, then the trees and the leaves are not of interest for me, because I know that serves a certain purpose, that one church scientist backs up the other scientists, so that people out there, laymen and general people, they think, oh yeah, the scientists, they all agree on that. Yeah. So that's the big problem of it. You don't get any promotion, you don't get any recognition. You don't be recognized if you are not following the official dogma. I just have highlighted the things which I thought were very interesting, so that we can skip here. You can look it up on Wikipedia, of course, for yourself. Another one is Pierre Simon Laplace. Yeah, also from the same time, from the Kingdom of France, from Normandy. He was a French scholar and polymath whose work was very important for the development of engineering, mathematics, statistics, physics, astronomy, and philosophy, etc. He has extended the work of the celestial mechanics. Laplace is remembered as one of the greatest scientists of all time, sometimes referred as to the French Newton or Newton of France. He has been described as possessing a phenomenal, natural, mathematical faculty superior to that of any of his contemporaries. He was Napoleon's examiner when Napoleon attended the École Militaire, military school, in Paris in 1784. I think that's that school here, École. He was named a Marquis after the Bourbon Restoration, so he was being granted as nobility. Okay. Let's look it up. Pierre Simon Laplace attended a school in the village run at the Benedictine Priory, his father intending that he be ordained in the Roman Catholic Church. At 16, to further his father's intention, he was sent to the University of Caen to read theology. Yeah, it's always the same, that people get the education in the Roman Catholic system. Not
yeah,
always,
Michael,
but the majority.
It's sophistry, the use of fallacious arguments, especially with the intention of deceiving. Yeah, sophistry, not casuistry. Casuistry is cases of conscience, but it can apply there too. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah. In that article has been mentioned the following. Laplace early published work in 1771 started with differential equations and finite differences, etc., etc., etc. 1776, so United States, very interesting date, huh? Further elaborated his statistical thinking and also began his systematic work on celestial mechanics and the stability of the solar system. You see, that it's all about the solar system.
Hey, Michael, you know, yeah. I don't know if we have any new listeners to our channel, but if we do, we just quick tell them that Michael and I, along with Jörg Lissman, read a book called Code Word Babylon, which deals very specifically with the problem that we're facing in terms of church and state merger politics, and of course the whole ecumenical poison that's going on at the moment. And you know, if you're familiar with our what can we say, our Jesuit-led president at the moment, Mr. Joseph Biden, who's a Catholic.
Yeah, who's the Catholic official Roman Catholic president?
Oh yeah, and he's surrounded by Jesuits and does interviews with Jesuits. You can find him everywhere, and just go search him. And you know, he said when he got his presidency in January, gave a speech that January 2020, I believe it was, or 2021, I forget. Anyway, when he gave his acceptance speech there, he says, "We need unity. We want unity," or whatever he said there, something about unity. Well, that's ecumenism, okay? Right in your face. They are calling and they're crying out for unity. What does that mean? Well, they want a one world united, of course, that's their goal, but they don't tell you that. They would rather you know, unite the country to declare the new world or the old world order, going back to the monarchy.
Mm-hmm. Good. No,
What's going on, Michael?
Okay.
Is I'm getting cut off, Michael. I'm getting cut off because I tried to talk earlier too, and it was cutting my voice. And as far as I know, all my connections are good here.
Okay. Are you uploading, downloading something at the same time?
No, I'm not doing anything.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay, so don't breathe.
Nothing. I don't know what's going on here.
Me neither.
I think, yeah, we might have to move from Skype too if this continues.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so please let me know if there are difficulties, because, yeah, that was just the first time I really have noticed it.
Well, you know, maybe I should wear a headphone or something to know if my voice is working or not, because I have no way of knowing if my audio system is working properly.
Mm-hmm.
On the other
at the moment,
end,
you are sounding fine.
Okay.
At the moment, it's absolutely fine. It's no difference to last week.
Oh, I know I got cut off because earlier I tried to interrupt when we were in that first couple sentences in that paragraph about the Catholic
okay
scientist. But go ahead, Michael.
Okay, then we hope for improvement.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's about the solar system, actually, that otherwise Mr. Laplace would not be famous, of course, because that's the official doctrine since the days of Copernicus, or maybe since the days of Galileo, but the church has committed to the solar system. So Isaac Newton had published his Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica in 1687, in which he gave a derivation of Kepler's laws, which describe the motion of the planets, from his law of motion and his law of universal gravitation. I'd say that is not a law, but that's a theory, so that is pseudoscience. That's
very interesting you mentioned that, because when I looked up fictitious force, you can look this up on Wikipedia. It says a fictitious force is also called a pseudo-force, or an internal force, is a force that appears to act on a mass whose motion is describing, isn't that funny, mass, described using a inertial frame of reference, such as an accelerating or rotating reference frame. Oh yeah, this is exactly what they need, Michael. Like, what was his name? Robert Bellarmine, right?
Yes, correctly, yes.
Robert Bellarmine needed proof, right?
Yep.
He was crying out for proof.
Yeah.
Kind of like Joseph Biden
visual
calling
proof
out for
exactly.
unity.
You see, yeah, visual proof, not only proof that the common man could so-called understand or see or get, but not any formula or something, but that they had to get it, they had to visualize it. Yeah, it's like the first man on the moon, so to speak. Yeah, so they have to, oh, wow, look at this. Yeah, you have to have a vision from far away, which is called a television. Yeah, that's the same concept. Yeah, you have to see it with your own eyes to believe it. Seeing is believing. Huh? However, though Newton had privately developed the methods of calculus, all his published work used cumbersome geometric reasoning, unsuitable to account for the more subtle high-order effects of interactions between the planets. Newton himself had doubted the possibility of a mathematical solution to the whole, even concluding that periodic divine intervention was necessary to guarantee the stability of the solar system. My. Yeah, we do not know if any quote is correct, which is...
What on earth is that? Geometric reasoning? I tried looking that up and wow.
Yeah,
the internet's not working right for me, Michael. I don't know what's going on here.
I don't know what's going on your side. You're actually sounding fine.
Okay, good. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Actually, I'm not hearing any difference at the moment. So if
okay,
you're coming,
you're
coming through clear as ever. You don't have a robot voice or something like that. You don't sound like a vocoder. So it's not affecting at the moment.
So it says here, Michael, originally published in 1989. Interesting cover of this book, Geometric Reasoning. There's a name of a book that was published. But here it says geometric reasoning involves using abstract thinking to define, analyze, and make arguments about shapes and spatial relationships. Yike.
Yeah, it's another form of trying to convince the people.
Sounds like spiritual exercises all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, you see, I'm not actually aware of what he actually did to so-called prove that, but you see that when he concludes that there must be something else which holds everything together, he's not far away from the alchemists, and he did alchemy. And I got so many surprises coming up. I hope I had made some notes yesterday and today. I hope I will not forget any of them, because actually we are getting in the next session so many strange artifacts and strange happenings that if you connect all the dots, your hair will dry gray, something like this.
Well, I got some gray hairs.
Yeah, will be more to come, huh? Yeah.
Oh yeah. For sure.
And you see, he also went into the Bible and prophecy. Newton. We did Newton. I think it was second to last session. Dispensing what the hypothesis of divine intervention would be a major activity in Laplace scientific life. Though that's just opinion here. Indeed, the solar system is understood to be chaotic, although it happens to be fairly stable. You see, it does not make sense to spoil so many precious time of the listeners to go into this. You know, the name Laplace, look it up if you are really interested about this, and we will provide you with further things to simply make up your mind. Even if you're not a Bible-believing Christian, make up your mind if you're not being fooled all your life by science, by people who claim that everything is very complicated out there and cannot be explained, that everybody gets it. In 1776, Laplace published a memoir in which he first explored the possibly influences of a purported luminiferous ether, or as a law of gravitation that did not act instantaneously. You see, this is all concept. This is not truth. Possible influences of a purported. You see, that's not science. Yeah, this is all theory. This is theory, like the theory of gravity, the theory of relativity. It's all theory here. And you have to really know and really understand that one new so-called fact relies on an older theory which has already not been proven. And it goes on and on and on and on. So absolutely today there are no facts. There are still a line of theories which people believe. So it's a belief system. It's not science in the sense that you can really measure and really comprehend and really verify anything. And that you have to really get. Yeah, on page 1 you use theory of something, for example, biology, and on page 2 this theory had already become fact, and upon that lies the new theory, which on page 3 is the new fact of the fact, which is all, but it's all just theory still, because it has not been proven. While Newton explained the tides by describing the tide-generating forces, and Bernoulli gave a description of the static reaction of the waters on Earth to the tidal potential, the dynamic theory of tides developed by Laplace described the ocean's real reaction to tidal forces. I have highlighted it in light green, which means I think it's untrue, because how will he know what is the real reaction?
Well, that they know that there is a real reaction. They're just trying to, use
read the next sentence. Read the next sentence. Laplace theory of ocean tides.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you see, theory upon theory upon theory. But in between, it says, oh, it describes the ocean's real reaction. And this is all fairy tales. This is all fairy tales. This is just from so-called high-minded and sophisticated people, sophistry. Just their theories. It's like in the psychology sector, where everybody has its own method to dissect people and to put them into groups, and everybody has his own scheme, etc. But it's not necessarily the truth. Yeah? So it looks all very fancy here, but it doesn't prove, because it's just a concept. It's a concept, how tidal things are being developed, etc. So maybe the truth of today is the lie of tomorrow, because the truth of yesterday is the lie of today. Yesterday, when we talked about immunity, it was something else than today. So this is memorable for the introduction into analysis of the spherical harmonics or Laplace coefficients, and also for the development of the use of what we would now call the gravitational potential in celestial mechanics. That sounds so cool, but it's still a theory, because gravitation is a theory. Yeah? So please allow me to skip all this, unless I have found something interesting. Laplace also had come close to propounding the concept of the black hole. He suggested that there could be a massive star whose gravity is so great that not even light could escape from their surface. Yeah? He came close, propounding, suggested there could be. Yeah, this is our theory. This is all theory, but people take that for granted, more or less, because he was such a great physician. He was the Newton of France, or was it the other guy? I don't know. You see that something escapes me here, because I see that this is all just a bunch of theories. And once more, I don't believe in gravity. I believe in the Bible. So it's very, very time consuming to read all this, and I would like to spare that for you. And Napoleon was so fond of Mr. Laplace. You are a mathematician, put this event into equation and you will find that it adds up to 0, blah, blah, blah. It's not of interest, because there is so much more interesting things coming up. Laplace died in Paris on 1827. His brain was removed by his physician and kept for many, many years, eventually being displayed in a roving anatomical museum in Britain. It was reportedly smaller than the average brain. What does the quantity has to do with the quality?
What on earth is this? I'm sorry, Michael. I got interrupted by a phone call here.
Okay.
This is interesting. This is a very interesting script, by the way, Michael.
That is the most uninterested part of the whole script.
Oh, is it?
Is it? It is. It is. So judging somebody's cleverness or intelligence by the size of his brain, what does that reveal of the intelligence? Yeah, it's so.
Never mind what he did and his works and all that. He had a small brain, so he couldn't have been that great.
But he was worshipped and venerated as an idol. Yeah, what is it other than an idol here, that tomb? Oh, it's a temple. Come on.
Whited sepulchres.
Yeah. a frequently
Reference
cited,
to
but
Matthew
potentially.
20. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just referencing Matthew 23, Michael. Whited sepulchres, they appear beautiful outwardly, but inwardly they are full of dead men's bones, referring to the white man, the man in white there in Rome.
Yeah, so nothing much is known also about his opinion about God. And you see that it's just hypothesis everywhere you look it up. You see that we will never get to the truth because we don't have access to the documents or the original documents. And then you have to count in that there might be some translation errors also. Yeah, you see that even when in Wikipedia it says, here I believe is what truly happened. Yeah, you see that's not the truth. It's just somebody is believed. Yeah.
It's a dogma.
It's a dogma. Yeah, you see, we can endlessly go on to dogma, but we don't know what actually was been seen.
You know, that's so interesting, isn't it? That dogma transfers over into all realms. I mean, you know, it all becomes opinion, and of course, anyone can write their opinion. It's just that some are more valued than others, Michael.
Yeah, you see that Newton believed in God and Laplace treated as that and the hypothesis. Yeah. I said for good reason that this is just the uninteresting thing of the script, because I just want to point you out that people who are being busy with gravity and all the things surrounding the Foucault pendulum, yeah, they have their theories, but not actual proof. Stephen Hawking said in 1999, quote, "I don't think that Laplace was claiming that God does not exist. It's just that he doesn't intervene to break the laws of science." And I don't want to cite Stephen Hawking because I don't think that he was a brilliant scientist. I think he was overhyped. Let's say this. Raised as a Catholic, Laplace appears in adult life to have inclined to deism. However, some of his contemporaries thought that he was an atheist. Yeah, he was into the solar system, guys. Yeah, what else to know? He was in the solar system. Yeah, and let's give it, because otherwise we need 250 sessions, because there is some quote here, some quote there. I got far more interesting things about the Foucault pendulum. Yeah. Oh, great. This is the German's one. Okay. So Laplace, sometimes the German script or the German Wikipedia actually has more and more interesting info. Which is a reading. From his 7 to his 16 years, he's visiting Laplace, the Benedictine school in his valley. The father of Laplace wanted to have him to study theology and philosophy at the Jesuit College of Caen. Yeah, so he was Jesuitically, educated. Jesuitical College of Caen. And then he met the Professor Christophe Gadlet and Pierre Le Canu, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, Laplace was very high-minded of himself. That's part of the German Wikipedia. But you see that here, you see in the German Wikipedia, you see he was studying at the Jesuit College, and he met at least two professors. So we know that he was supported because he simply wanted to prove the effects which could also be used to so-called prove the heliocentric solar system. Yeah, and he was also together with Alexander von Humboldt. There we will mention him later. He was always on the side of the mighty people, and despite biggest scientific successes, he wasn't being buried in the Pantheon. He was always on the side of the mighty people. Yeah, opportunist, you would like to call that kind of people. So, what's about Leon Foucault? Leon Foucault, a French physicist best known for his demonstration of the so-called pendulum, a device demonstrating the Earth affects rotation. This is simply a lie. It does not demonstrate that. He does always other things about the speed of light, etc., etc., etc. And you can guess that the mighty people of his time wanted to prove the so-called rotation of the Earth. Yeah? Robert Bellarmine, once again. When you ask yourself, who was that Robert, not sorbet, that's something to eat, Robert Bellarmine, then we will say that he was a Jesuit theologian and a cardinal, and he lived from 1542 to 1621. So he was one of the first Jesuit theologians and cardinals. Yeah, and he wanted to push the heliocentrical system. Doctor of the Church, only one of 36. Why 36? Well, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, a very, very long time ago, Michael.
That's what's very, yeah. And he was widely remembered for his role of the Giordano Bruno affair and the Galileo affair. Yeah, you see, Galileo was the one who said, oh, it moves, it rotates. Yeah. Okay, so once again, back to Leon Foucault. Leon Foucault, if I remember correctly, let me look it up. Oh, it's not in the English script. My, really? They don't tell you anything, huh? Okay, so we will. Yeah, this is the grave of Jean-Bernard Leon Foucault, yeah, in Montmartre, okay? This is the German thing of Leon Foucault, okay? 1890 to 1868. If I go to the English Wikipedia, yeah, 1890, 1868, are you familiar with that? You see that's the same guy, okay, the so-called inventor of the Foucault pendulum. If I go to his death and afterwards, probably he died of rapidly developing case of multiple sclerosis on the 11th, etc. He was buried. That's all you get in the, English Wikipedia. He is one of the 72 names inscribed of the Eiffel Tower. You see that if you want to make it big in this world, yeah, you have to come up with the theory which matches the dogma of his time. That was the solar system, okay? And now, don't be surprised if I tell you what in the German Wikipedia of the same article about the inventor of the so-called Foucault pendulum, which you see here in the Pantheon, yeah, the gods, where the gods live in the temple, where it is here displayed prominently. Yeah, you see that in English you get only probably some, once again, a theory, probably a rapidly developing case of multiple sclerosis, okay? And now we get to the German Wikipedia. This is the German Wikipedia on the same article about his death. And I will say, I will copy that, okay? 72 names on the Eiffel Tower, and I will translate that to you. Okay, so. Okay, so from German to English, yeah? So. You got any suspicion, Brett? At the age of 48, Foucault suffered a serious illness from which he first felt numbness in his hands in October 1867. That does not mentioned in the English Wikipedia, right? It progressed rapidly until he died almost blind and mute on February the 11th, 1868 in Paris. The exact cause of death, it's been mentioned as in the English Wikipedia, oh, it's multiple sclerosis. Yeah, nothing else has been mentioned here. And in German Wikipedia, when I translate it back, the exact cause of death is unclear, although a rapidly progressing case of multiple sclerosis and then a stroke or the after effects of his long-term experiments with chemicals, especially mercury, are assumed.
Geez, here we go again.
Isn't that
mercury
big
poisoning? Wow, that's very revealing, Michael.
You only find that on the German Wikipedia. You don't find it in the English Wikipedia as we have seen it. You only find it in the German one, Leon Foucault. Yeah. This is English here, death and afterwards. And if I switch it to German, Deutsch, yeah, then you got here long year experience with chemicals, especially quecksilver, so quicksilver, mercury. Interesting, huh? So once again, this is the fourth scientist I have looked which died of mercury poisoning. The first was Paracelsus. The second, it was Tycho Brahe, which is geocentric system. The third one was Isaac Newton. And the fourth one now is Leon Foucault. All four died at least with mercury poisoning. Interesting, huh? So that also could mean that either he was poisoned or he was doing alchemy, or both. That's my find of today. I said, wow, I have to mention that. I really have to mention that. Yeah, you see that is also the difference between the English and the German script. You see that this is just a world famous French scientist. Why is it not mentioning in an English script? Huh? Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, so what does that guy do? This Foucault disk, there's also not a Foucault pendulum, but also a Foucault disk. And there is so much to learn about it. I don't know where to start, actually. First of all, we have to get known to the fact that usually they tell you that, oh, it is a law when it's mostly a theory. Secondly, that they mostly claim that, oh yeah, it's always so and so, when it is not always so and so. For example, we have learned about Mr. Coriolis that on the northern hemisphere, all winds are circling towards the right. Yeah, and on the other side, it is always it's always the opposite. But the problem is that, oh, there is no rule without an exception, because I found also quotes, and I think I have not copied here. I found also quotes who say, oh yeah, but only most of the times. Huh? Remember, a pseudo force cannot be explained because there are some kind of
Are you talking about prevailing winds, Michael? Prevailing winds from the right, you said, or going to the right?
The winds and tornadoes and storms actually are turning clockwise. Yeah. On the northern hemisphere. Right. Yeah. Yeah, and on the southern hemisphere, like, they turn
like when you flush the toilet too, it rotates clockwise.
Yeah.
Or when you're draining your sink, you know. You drain the sink and eventually it twirls clockwise. Yeah. I know that. And they say that when you're in the southern hemisphere, it goes counterclockwise. Yeah,
but you see that most of the time true when it comes down to winds, but there are also exceptions. I don't know if I've mentioned it here. But once again, this is not a Coriolis power, the power of Coriolis, because it is just mentioned after Mr. Coriolis. So it could be another effect which is not known to us and not known to Mr. Coriolis. Okay. So most likely God has not created the world with the Coriolis power. Yeah. Okay. So I guess you know where he has got his education, and let's go to the nitty-gritty of the things. Let me introduce you to a YouTube video of Foucault's Pendulum from the video called 60 Symbols. As he said, that is a professor of university, he says, because the Earth is rotating, I can't remember which way it rotates. I read the sentence again. This is a professor of university, he says, because the Earth is rotating, I can't remember which way it rotates. I got one comment. This is an expert. Now, I was so shaking my head at that moment. I said that I cannot believe that is true. Actually, yeah, they try to teach you something, and the simplest things, even if it is untrue, the simplest things, yeah, they cannot get because, I don't know, you have to use their own brains. You cannot remember which. I can remember which supposedly is, if the Earth would be rotating, I would know instantly in which direction it would turn. Because I know that this picture depicts the United States of America.
Well, the sun goes down in the west, so that's a good start.
Yeah. So. Yeah, but the people. Yeah, but you see, there are also not. The problem is actually not the guy who was explaining that. Yeah. the problem is the audience that does not get it, that he's got no clue. Yeah, because this is the very video here. Yeah, 227,000 hits, and people say, oh yeah, that's great, like it. Yeah, and people say he's so engaged in his explanation about the mechanics of the pendulum, he forgets which direction the Earth rotates. Reminds me of my professor. I love this channel. Yeah, I don't want to be educated by people who cannot think the most simple things, but they have to explain everything which is very complicated, and therefore I can only tell you that this is the wrong explanation, especially when you consider that this guy is used to explain something which he doesn't get at all. Yeah, but you see that the audience also doesn't get it. Yeah, the humility of a true scientist is also, it's all BS. It's all BS. It's all BS. This is my favorite professor by far. Sorry, guys. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah, he forgets. You see, he cannot think of his own because he forgets actually what way the Earth is rotating. Yeah, and somebody also had a quote here of a book of Umberto Eco. Umberto Eco is a famous writer, and he wrote also the Foucault Pendulum, but as a novel, not as a scientific journal or something like that. And he's talked about that, oh yeah, there's a conspiracy about the Foucault Pendulum, etc., etc. I don't know if I got it here in the script. This is page 223. Umberto Eco, yeah, Umberto Eco. Yeah. Umberto Eco. Yeah, Umberto Eco has a crazy novel called The Foucault Pendulum. Yeah. Okay, 223 it was, so I know it comes later, so I don't want to spoil it here. Yeah, but once again, yes, this guy doesn't know in which way the Earth supposedly turns. Yeah, it's rotating. Yeah, so I can tell you in which way, and everybody also who is familiar with time zones also knows in which way supposedly the Earth is rotating. But I can tell you, she's not rotating because the sun is moving. Yeah? So these called experts. Yeah, he also says, and that's a very valuable thing when we go down to the pendulums, because we have only to explain what is the downfall of the pendulum and what are the negative signs of the pendulum and why it cannot prove anything at all. He says here, quote, it decreases because of the friction of the air and you make the system bigger, etc. So that he says that the speed of the pendulum decreases because of the friction of the air. So then why, I ask you, dear listeners, why is the pendulum still moving? Yeah, but you have to trust the scientist once again. Yeah, I thought he said, quote, I thought that was that clever of Foucault. I mean, it's something. Yeah, it's something to distract the people, actually. Yeah, so this is a professor. Professor means is one who teaches a branch of knowledge, especially in university, a person who professes to be an expert in some art of science. Professor also means one professing religion. The English Puritans used the word from the 14th century in the sense of one who openly professes religious faith. And what is science other than religion? It's down to the nitty-gritty question of it all. Are we in a geocentrical or an heliocentrical system? Has God created the Earth, or has a Big Bang, something like that, created it all by accidents? Yeah? So that's it. And in Matthew 24, Jesus spake to the multitude, and he was saying that the scribes and the Pharisees, they sit in Moses' seat. So we are not being taught the right science of the Bible. We are not being taught the truth. We are not being taught the real cause of everything, but all just lies, because in this system, Satan is the ruler, which is, rewarding his pupils, rewarding his universities, rewarding his professors, rewarding his politicians, rewarding his military leaders, etc., etc.
Rewarding his idols, Michael.
His idols, yes. Yeah. And
the great men of the earth, yeah.
Yeah, the great men of the earth, yeah. it's not only interesting that chapter for that nobody shall be called master or rabbi and nobody shall be called father, because your father is in heaven, but also because it is he's been repeatedly saying this. This is very interesting.
Michael, this is Matthew 23, not 24. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is wrong. Yeah. Okay. 23. Of course. It's 23.
Sure.
Yeah. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites.
Yeah.
And you see how strongly it's been criticized.
For ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men, for ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. So they're blocking the path to salvation. They're blocking the path to salvation.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah. Look at this.
That is their purpose.
Look at this. It's many times he's been citing scribes and Pharisees, and scribes are the one, who's been writing the books, who's been writing down everything, the so-called history or the so-called science or the so-called laws.
Yeah, in verse 17, it says, ye fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifieth the gold?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the whole concept behind sanctified wealth. These are things we really need to sit down and think about here.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, you just gloss over it and move on, and you forget all about what sanctification is. And sanctification is probably the most important process in a born-again believer's life, because that process makes you marked by Jesus Christ through Jesus Christ to the Father. So he knows you, not the Holy Father in Rome. Okay? That's the opposite. That's the counterfeit. See, what we see on the television is the Holy Father in Rome and everyone bowing down and kissing his ring. What does that do? That shows submission to the man of sin. That's how politics work. That's what politics do. They warp men's minds into man's laws and not God's. See, they're confusing us, Michael.
Mm-hmm. If I have seen it correctly, it's the 6th time here in that chapter.
Wow.
7.
It's again.
7, yeah. Mm-hmm. I never have, it's now that I've really been concentrated and focused on that. I have never ever get my attention, but now I'm looking into it. I said, wow, that's really something that is mentioned that much in that one chapter alone.
Yeah, it's a straight up rebuke.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. You can't escape the damnation of hell. That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot.
Yeah, it's really...
And that goes to all of us, really. If we don't pay attention to sanctified wealth, we're done, Michael. It's like we've been talking about this for a long time, Michael, the mammon.
Mm-hmm.
You serve either God or you serve the mammon.
Yeah.
You know, do you want to be known as serving mammon?
Can't serve two masters. And can't serve two doctrines. Yeah, can't serve two faiths.
Correct. You cannot. A man cannot serve two masters.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah, so that is chapter 23, which I usually quote for master or father and something like that. But you see that 7 times, if I have seen it correctly, 7 times.
Isn't that interesting? Verse 37 there, where he says, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem." I mean, we still have Jerusalem today. I was watching a video last night, as a matter of fact, with someone talking about Jerusalem. And boy, I'm telling you, we have such a confused world biblically. Man, people really ought to slow down and study their history, Michael, because especially when it comes to the faith and the church and the history of the church, if you don't know this stuff, you're just going to be completely ignorant the rest of your life. It is just absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah, and it's just around the corner.
I don't know. I mean, you know, we're just looking at this, trying to be open-minded about it, Michael. But you know that the Bible really defines our faith. It defines how we ought to be. You know, not to think too highly of ourselves, I think applies here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and yeah, just everything in this world, the way people venerate their idols, idolatry and eschatology. I think these are the 2 big stumbling blocks, Michael. I was thinking about that for months now, about doing videos on just idolatry and eschatology in detail. But, you know, that's going to require some serious time to prepare those.
Yeah.
Very important, though. Very, very important.
So people would like to know that how they put up that deception, because you see that there's something fishy about it. But what actually could it be, and what is the other purpose than to state it could be a verification of the solar system, of the heliocentric system, which it isn't. So you won't find any big literature on that, because it is a censored internet, it is a censored science system, a school system, textbooks, all has been in according to the ones in power, and they do that in according to the ones in power behind the power. So that the people in real power, they also write the education books, and also there, of course, these are the Jesuits, these are the men who being responsible for the education system. So that people, all the pupils in the school are learning that and getting good grades by remembering that, and so they're writing down their examinations and they pass to the next year, and they pass to the university, and they never question anything, because all of them scientists say it's so and so, and don't question authority. They want to make it big in this world, so they have to believe the lie, and they've been rewarded with that, of course. So because that is just an egoistic society, and you won't get rewarded with the money big time if you speak out the truth. People will fight you, because actually they want to be their own God, and that's what the people make them so successfully, because they all do what's in their power to get to the top, to have a bigger car, to have a bigger house, etc. These are the things of worth in that world we are living in, and so that all these famous scientists, politicians, etc., they all fall for that. They fall for their pride. They want to have that precious belongings. They want to have the golden calf. They want to have the biggest possessions, and you have to be very careful that your possessions don't possess you, as Brett once or twice mentioned that very prominently. So
yeah, that's right. That is the problem with this life, Michael, is that we oftentimes get a little carried away in our imagination, and I'm no exception to that rule. It's just it's the lust of the flesh. Ring a bell? The pride of life, you know? It's not such a good thing biblically, is it? No.
No, you see that even the Israelites in the second book of Moses in Exodus, they were wearing golden earrings. Why were they wearing golden earrings? Yeah. Okay, but I now will provide you in this and in the next session, I will provide you with some interesting books and sources to actually to think for yourself what kind of a system we are living in and if it could be this or the other way. So let's start randomly. The Earth Stands Fast by a so-called Professor Schöpfer, which has been fighted all over again on the internet. Yeah, so if you go down to the Professor Schöpfer on the Wikipedia page, you find that he's a betrayer and a lunatic and etc., 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 etc. He says the Earth is geocentric, stationary. The Earth stands fast. Okay. Okay. So Professor Schöpfer. Translated for and edited by J. Watts de Pester. J. Watts de Pester was a judge advocate general of the county and a general, etc., etc. And this is Georg Karl Ludwig Schöpfer. Okay, Professor Circle, a German writer, journalist, and private teacher. And he wrote with pseudonyms and several novels, etc., etc. So of course he will be made up, seen in a very foolish light here, and yeah, he had various pseudonyms, and he was accused of being a betrayer, etc., etc. Yeah, of course people who are claiming a stationary Earth will be fighted, of course. So that we do not know actually what's about him, because I haven't looked it up that much. But you see that there is literature about it, but the problem is that we do not know how reliable the people behind it are. So it's very hard to search for these things. In that book, it says here, we cannot demonstrate and perceive the rotation of the Earth in any way. There are no air currents which we can just regard as or even supposed to be consequences of this rotation. These facts ought to be proof enough against the existence of a rotation of the Earth. Indeed, we wholly lack, as I remarked at the beginning, a consideration indicating rotation which can be substantiated. Must it not appear almost absurd in us, preoccupied by what they have taught us in school, to accept a theory of the rotation of the Earth which neither is nor can be proven? Must we not wonder at the readiness of the learned of nearly the entire world from the time of Copernicus and Kepler to accept the conception of the rotation of the Earth, and then search afterwards now for the nearly 3.5 centuries for arguments to maintain it, but of course without being able to find them? And I know that the so-called science came up with different methods of proving that the Earth does rotate. And I know at least 3, and I know also at least for every one of them a counter argument, and I hope I will get it, and I hope I will remember it when it comes up here in that script. Okay. Oh, there is so much in the Bible also that Shakespeare, for example, could be a forgery out of the King James Bible, because in Psalms there's one shake and there's one spear in 2 verses. So people have said that, quoted that there could be some, could be some.
Is that Psalm 46? Yeah, Psalm 46, because it's XV or XL, which is 40.
I found a quote on the internet here that is the Galileo tried letter of the high-ranking Curialist Cardinal Schönberg encouraging Copernicus to publish his book, and therefore printed as a second preface to the Revolution, points to something very important, namely the Copernicanism being the fulfillment of the gist of the Catholic atheistic theology as established by the so-called angelic doctor Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas acknowledge atheist naturalism as in some measure an intellectually considerable alternative to theism. It seems that God does not exist. In this way, Thomas Aquinas prepared way for Copernicus and his sun God as the ultimate natural ruler of nature. Thomas Aquinas' critical judgment of the Ptolemaic system, which was regarded heretic by Rome, sounds like this. The assumptions that made by the astronomers are not necessarily true. Although these hypotheses seem to be in agreement with the observed phenomena, we must not claim that they are True. Perhaps one could explain the observed motion of this celestial body in a different way, which has not been discovered up to this time. It's a paraphrase of Averroes, a real atheist critic of the same system, in conformity with the natural religion of Aquinas. In Summa Theologica Aquinas, it identifies God with the impersonal, mechanical, eternal reason of the philosophers, which has nothing to do with the personal God of the Bible. I cannot back it up. That's why I have to question that quote. You see that Summa Theologica, there are several books with thousands of pages. I cannot look it up at this moment. Okay, so then it's it's been said that the Foucault pendulum is located at either of the Earth's geographic poles. The apparent rotation would occur in exactly 24 hours. Actually, it is the Earth that has rotated beneath the pendulum in this period, while the pendulum's direction of motion remains fixed in space. This is a common laboratory proof of the Earth's rotations. It is hilariously bullshit. Okay? Which means that, judging by Foucault's pendulum, certain regions of the Earth rotate faster or slower than the others. All watches show otherwise. Under Foucault's mechanical tyrant, the natural cycle of day and night would be disturbed. People living closer to the equator would be forced to work longer than the people living in the circumpolar zones. This is just opinion. They are told on the signs that they are viewing a scientific demonstration with proofs the Earth is moving. They are told. Viewers assume that this pendulum is giving observable proof that the Earth is moving. They are told, so the observers are told, on the signs that they are viewing a scientific demonstration with proof the Earth is moving. Everybody knows that. And you have learned it in the school system, that the Earth is rotating on an axis and orbiting the Sun. Now they see the confirmation before their very eyes. Who now can doubt the science God of truth, as known as stupid, dumb, deaf, and blind Apollo? Apollo being the Roman sun god, or Sol for the solar system, S-O-L. Who now dares to believe the Bible is without error? People watch a minute or two, read the message, and go to another taxpayer-supported so-called educational display, which tells them that life on Earth has been evolving for 3 billion years or longer, and that they are the end result of that evolutionary process. The Earth is not moving. Over 400 years of deception exposed, the Bible told the truth all along. Marshall Hall. The Earth is not moving. Before Copernican heliocentric indoctrination, any child will look up the sky and notice that the sun, moon, and stars all revolve around a stationary Earth. All empirical evidence from our perspective clearly shows that we are fixed and everything rotates around us. We feel motionless and experience the sun, moon, stars, and planets spinning around us. To suspend this common sense geocentric perspective and assume that it's actually the Earth revolving beneath us daily while rotating around the sun yearly is quite a theoretical leap. What strikes you as being some thoughts that some people would have if, in the short space of a few weeks, the universally held conviction, universally means Catholic, the Catholic held conviction that the Earth rotates on an axis daily and orbits the Sun annually were exposed as an unscientific deception? Keep in mind that the rotating, orbiting Earth is not counted as a mere hypothesis or even a theory anywhere in the world today. Oh no, rather, this concept is an unquestioned truth, an established fact in all books and other media everywhere, church media included. You don't have to question it, you see. That's the truth, so-called truth. Copernicanism, in short, is a concept that is protected in a bunker under a 50-foot thick ceiling of solid scientific concrete. It is meant to be impregnable. It is a concept that had become ensconced in men's minds as the instructable cornerstone of enlightened modern man's knowledge. Oh, enlightenment. Virtually all people everywhere have been taught to believe and do believe that this concept is based on objective science and dispassionate secular reasoning. Exposing the Copernican deception, Marshall Hall. Every experiment ever designed to detect the motion of the Earth has failed to detect Earth motion and or distinguish it from relative counter motion of the universe. Also the Michelson-Morley experiment. Right up to the 20th century, many attempts have been made to try and prove that heliocentricity is true and geocentricity is false. All such attempts have failed and only reinforced geocentricity. The most well-known of these is the Michelson-Morley experiment, which attempted to measure the change in speed of light due to the assumed motion of Earth through space. They measured in every different direction various places on the Earth's surface and failed to detect any significant change whatsoever. The Michelson-Gale experiment also failed to prove heliocentricity, but was able to measure the movement of the aether firmament. The aether is not firmament, but the firmament around the Earth accurate to within 2%. I haven't read about the Michelson-Gale experiment, but of the Michelson-Morley experiment. An experiment known as Airy's failure involves filling a telescope with water to slow down the speed of light inside. Usually, telescopes must be slightly tilted to get the starlight down to the axis of the tube, supposedly due to Earth's speed around the Sun. Airy discovered that actually the starlight was already coming in at the correct angle, so no change was necessary. This demonstrated that the stars move relatively to a stationary Earth and not the other way around. If it was the telescope moving, he would have to change the angle. People need to be aware that there is a range of models that could explain the observations. For instance, I can construct you a spherically symmetrical universe with Earth at its center, and you cannot disprove it based on observations. You cannot. You see, they claim that all their science is so sophisticated because they got the tools for it, which costs millions of dollars, and you don't have access to that. You have to believe the pictures they are presenting to you. That's the problem. You cannot see and verify it with your own eyes. So it is a belief that they will never lie to you, would they? You can only exclude it on philosophical grounds. In my view, there is absolutely nothing wrong in that. What I want to bring into the open is the fact that we are using philosophical criteria in choosing our models. A lot of cosmology tries to hide that. That's a quote of George Eliot, Thinking Globally, Acting Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
In order to save the dying heliocentric theory from the conclusive geocentric experiments performed by Michelson, Morley, Gale, Sackner, Cantor, and others, established mastermind Albert Einstein created his special theory of relativity, in which in one philosophical swoop banished the absolute firmament from scientific study and replaced it with a form of relativism which allowed for heliocentrism and geocentrism to hold equal merit. I always pointed out that there is only one absolute truth, and science comes up with relatives. Yeah, so it depends. Yeah, so that you know they are BSing you or bullshitting you. If there is no universal etheric medium within which all things exist, then philosophically one can postulate complete relativism with regard to the movement of two objects such as the Earth and the Sun. Nowadays, just like the theory of heliocentrism, Einstein's theory of relativity is accepted worldwide as gospel truth, even though he himself admitted geocentrism is equally justifiable. Once again, yeah? Look here, this is a theory, and this is not truth. It is a theory where a mortal man has been coming up with, and it was only not his theory. We will look upon that further. Albert Einstein, quote, "The struggle so violent in the early days of science between the views of Ptolemy and Copernicus would then be quite meaningless. Either coordinate system could be used with equal justification. The two sentences, first, the sun is at rest and the earth moves, or second, the sun moves and the earth is at rest, would simply mean two different conventions concerning two different coordinate systems." So it is depending on your viewpoint or depending on your location. And if he would knew what impact that had on my research, that sentence, because yeah, I hope I will remember it later on. Okay, so if one accepts the unintuitive but very imaginative heliocentric model, then one accepts, even though it goes against observation, experimental evidence, and common sense, that the Earth is actually spinning around its axis at 1,000 miles per hour, revolving around the Sun at 76,000 miles per hour, while the entire solar system rotates around the Milky Way galaxy at 500,000 miles per hour, and the Milky Way speeds through the known universe at over 670 million miles per hour. But nobody feels a thing. I'd like to know, if you are really being subject to all these forces' motions, then why hasn't anyone in all of our history ever felt it? How is it that all of the centrifugal, gravitational, inertial, and kinematic forces somehow cancel each other out perfectly, so that no one has ever felt the slightest bit of motion or resistance? Why aren't there any worldwide perturbations of our smooth rotation after earthquakes or meteor strikes? Why can I still feel the slightest breath on my face, but not the air displacement from all this motion? If the Earth is spinning beneath us, why can't I just hover in a helicopter, wait until my destination reaches me, and then land when it comes? Most people answer, though they cannot explain it, that this is because the Earth's atmosphere supposedly rotates precisely along with the Earth. What a wonder, huh? But if that's the case, then heliocentric dogmatists run into a whole of other host of problems. For instance, if both the Earth and its atmosphere are spinning 1,000 miles per hour west to east, then why don't pilots need to make 1,000 miles per hour compensation acceleration when flying east to west? If 1,000 miles per hour atmosphere is constantly flowing eastwards, why don't north-southbound pilots have to set diagonal courses to compensate? If 1,000 miles per hour atmosphere is constantly flowing eastward, how do we explain the casual jet, unpredictable movement of clouds, wind patterns, and weather formations every which way? If the atmosphere is constantly being pulled along with the Earth's rotation, then why can I feel the slightest westward breeze but not the Earth 1,000 miles per hour eastward spin? But you need science, you need a Foucault pendulum, you need every fancy stuff to let people not use their brains. And please don't read the Bible, because otherwise...
Oh, yeah. Yes. You got to have a healthy dose of sophistry, Michael.
In short, the sun, moon, and stars are actually doing precisely what everyone thought all history has seen them do. We do not believe what our eyes tells us because we have been taught a counterfeit system which demands that we believe what has never been confirmed by observation or experiment. That counterfeit system demands that the Earth rotate on an axis every 24 hours at a speed of over 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. No one has ever seen or felt such movement, nor seen or felt the 67,000 miles per hour speed at the Earth elipse orbit around the Sun, or the 500,000 miles, etc., 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 or its retreat from an elipse Big Bang is also a Jesuitical concept at over 607 billion miles per hour, or millions miles per hour. I don't care. You see, this is all big numbers here. Remember, no experiment has ever shown the Earth to be moving. Add to the fact that the elite rotational speed we've all been taught as a scientific fact must decrease every inch or mile one goes north or south of the equator, and it becomes readily apparent that such things are as accurate aerial bombing in World War II down a chimney from 25,000 feet with a plane going any direction at high speed would have been impossible if calculated on an Earth moving below at several hundred miles per hour and changing constantly with their latitude. And there are many, many other problems too. Many. Oh, is this one eye? Experiments have been performed firing cannons in all cardinal directions to check for Earth rotations. If the Earth was really spinning as the heliocentrical models suggest, then the Earth-firing cannonballs should fall significantly farther than all others, and the West-firing cannonballs should fall significantly shorter than all others. In actual fact, however, regardless of which direction one fires a cannon, north, south, east, west, the distance covered is always the same. Yeah, and you can go on and on and on and on and on, but people have been fooled by science. By removing Earth from the motionless center of the universe, those dark philosophers, Copernicus, Kepler, Newton, Galileo, Einstein, have moved us physically and metaphysically from a place of supreme importance to one of complete nihilistic indifference. If the Earth...
Comment. So these dark philosophers, Copernicus, Kepler, Newton, Galileo, Einstein, have moved us physically and metaphysically.
Philosophically.
And what is metaphysics again?
It's a branch of philosophy.
Sciences.
Yeah.
And what's occultism? Worshipping Lucifer / Satan?
Yeah, or any pagan god, huh? Yeah. Or any sun god.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get a reward. You see, these are the household names of today.
Yeah, of course. They have to be.
Yeah. If the Earth is the center of the universe, then the ideas of God, creation, and the purpose of human existence are resplendent. But if the Earth is just one of billions of planets revolving around billions of stars and billions of galaxies, then the ideas of God, creation, and a specific purpose for Earth and human existence become highly implausible. Yeah, that's the goal, I think. That's the goal.
Oh, the Counter-Reformation, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're right in the heart of it now, aren't we?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, pseudoscience. Yeah, that's pseudoscience. That's pseudoscience. Everything
comes up again.
Is pseudoscience. Yeah. Trust your eyes and your cameras. They have no reason to deceive you about whether the stars are going around nightly. Then get it in your mind. This single fact surrounding stars traits that has been photographed thousands of times and cannot be denied must be explained away by the theoretical science establishment. All of the factless allegations, a rotating and orbiting Earth, billions of light years distance to stars, etc., the whole Big Bang paradigm, all of the elite evolution of the universe, Earth, mankind, that is to say, all of our modern evolution-based, cosmology-controlled so-called knowledge today, all of it is completely undone if the stars are doing what cameras show they are doing, namely going around the Earth nightly. If you can do so for a few minutes, just lay aside the Copernican indoctrination that accompanies such pictures and take a good hard look at these photographs of something that really, really happens every single night. Do you see what I see? I see all the visible stars in the northern skies going around the North Star in perfect circles. In other words, I see all the stars which these time exposures have recorded actually going around that navigational star that God put there for us in the northern hemisphere. Remember, the first two pictures are 8-hour exposures. Again, look closely and you see the third of the circle in the center and in the next star trail or so. This means that each star circles in one 24-hour day. The same thing is captured in circumpolar photos taken at the southern hemisphere. There are so many things if you really think about it, yeah.
Well, yeah, Michael, and when you take into account the first chapter of the book of Matthew, for instance, the genealogy of, the lineage of Christ from the beginning. And when you present this to anyone of learned science today, they'll look at you like you're from the Stone Age. And you've become a complete insult to everything they've learned their entire lives. And yeah, I don't know, Michael. It's pretty stark contrast from the Bible is a very stark contrast from the world we live in today, where we have this constant what do you want to call it? Constant technological, men work so hard on creating new systems every year and outdoing the old that they've forgotten, what it means to live. And just, I don't know, I shouldn't speak for all men like this, but I mean, there's just a vast majority of people that just want to keep speeding things up in terms of, technology. And what is it doing for us, Michael?
You see that people are listening to the people out there because they're being rewarded and becoming good grades, and they will make it in the world. You see that how easy it is to convince people that up is down and down is up. It's Satan, it's the adversary. He has to twist everything around.
And he's done a good job of it. That's the problem. He's done a really good job of it.
Yeah.
And
he's done a pretty good job with it. Yeah.
Sadly, do we take enough time to really understand our Bible? That's the question. Back to the gold. Which is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifieth the gold? It's not a trick question. What it means is there is something called sanctified wealth. And that is wealth that God has put for you to, expand and to reap something from this earth. We have to wrestle with all kinds of problems, and one of them has to be the ground itself. We've been cursed when we look at, the old covenant and what when we started as Israel. And of course, now we have a new covenant in Jesus' blood. And what do they do in these Bibles? They get rid of the power of the blood of Christ and just completely erase it from the Bible. The power of his blood to his one and only sacrifice for all sin. If we really understood what that meant, if we really understood what sanctification is, we would understand that physical gold has no real value.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have any real value. What has real value is been washed through the blood of Christ, as far as I understand, Michael. That's sanctification. That's a gift. And what does it say in Proverbs? Get understanding. If you get anything, get understanding. In other words, get your mind wrapped around what this is all about. If it's sanctification for you, dear brethren, then it's time to really start thinking about sanctified wealth. Not about gold. Because, that's the whole purpose of this alchemy. They're trying to turn just base metals into gold, when it's all pretense. It doesn't exist. It's all fallacious. That's what they're doing right before our very eyes. They're taking our world and explaining it like blinded with science, right, Michael? Right back to blinded with science.
That's why I pointed out this professor here. You see that he doesn't know which kind of direction the Earth supposedly is moving, but he can explain everything so fine with the use of big works or complex explanations.
Isn't it with what they're doing? Can't you just accept the free gift of life and just be
No, if they would not be in that position. You see that these people strive for money and fame.
Yes,
that's the problem. You have two possibilities, and these people, you see that they are on that path. They have to contradict everything. But you see that we're not even halfway through the Foucault pendulum, and I think that we have to continue that in the next session, because otherwise it would be a very, very long session if we not doing two sessions, but one extreme long session, and I think that is not correct when it comes to such a delicate matter of that science, so-called. And I think that it's time to close it down. What do you think, Brett?
Oh, of course. Well, and here's the thing, you get all these arguments going and you turn things around opposite. And what do you expect is going to happen? You're going to get really badly misled is what's going to happen. And what does our Bible tell us? Let no man deceive you by any means. And that's 2 Thessalonians again, chapter 2, which is a very, very important chapter in the Bible. Very, very important. Very key to understanding the historical problem, the conflict we're really facing. I think, we all need to really hunker down and think about these things, because, you go whizzing along at 6,700 million miles per hour, like they're telling us here. That's actually, this is good text you found, Michael, because it shows the biblical perspective and just how absurd this is.
Yeah, wait till we come to the next session, and then you will see how yeah, how
well,
they
we're
try
starting to entering into this picture, you know, Michael. We're starting to enter into Robert Bellarmine's proof
yeah.
back in I can't remember what year he stated that, but what's that?
16th century, yeah.
Council of Trent. I mean, that's all we got to think about is the Council of Trent.
Yeah.
What did they do in the Council of Trent? Well, they completely destroyed any kind of can we say dialogue with Martin Luther's Reformation. That, well, it wasn't just Martin Luther. We can't give Martin Luther the credit now, can we? We can give him partial credit, yes, but it was every man, woman, and child at that time knew who their enemy was without any doubt. And they could see it when they opened the Bible and read the pages of the Bible. It was plain as day. But now that's all been swept under the rug. The history's been completely eradicated from the schools. You don't teach anything about the Inquisition. You don't teach anything about Protestantism ever. It's not even a factor. Well, if you do, it's only for, you know, some other reason, but not in terms of, you know, really absolutes. You have to define your own absolutes here. We're not trying to teach dogma. You know, if anything, we just are just researchers here. We're just students, and we're learning that this Counter-Reformation has spanned far more territory because of science, Michael. Yeah, so right at the end here, it says, you know, basically the world we're living in now is upside down.
It is.
It totally is. How can you go much further than this, Michael?
Let's wait. Let's wait. We will show our dear audience how subtle they do that and how important that is to keep the people and their minds away from the Bible and away from the truth. So thanks very much for bearing with me, and I hope all to see you next time. God bless, and Maranatha.
Maranatha.